Speaking of changes, I wanted to touch on just a couple of changes here that the team as a whole has made this summer. In terms of the offseason, and there's things happening. Even for a team that's set up to be very competitive next season, there's always things to improve upon. There's always things to be done in order to put yourself in a position to be in that title hunt. And obviously, the first thing I wanted to touch on is that trade that went down on July 6th. Sending out Will Barton and Monte Morris, acquiring KCP and Ish Smith in return. So they come in and they're taking over those roles in the backcourt. And I'm sure that you were a part of that decision-making process and bringing in those guys, specifically targeting them, in the offseason. But at first glance, it seems like they're both going to have a very positive impact for Denver. KCP with his shooting prowess, his two-way play. He shot 39% from three last season. So obviously that's something that Denver could really utilize in the backcourt. And then bringing in Ish Smith, just a guy that's, he's been all around the league. He's played for almost more teams than anybody else in the history of the NBA, which, speaks to his versatility and how much he's just been valuable for every single organization he's been a part of in his long tenure in the NBA. But just want to get your thoughts on those guys specifically, the strengths that they bring to the table, their experience as veterans. They've both been in the NBA for multiple years. They've been in multiple organizations. What do you see from those two guys specifically, bringing them into the fold in Denver, and maybe just speak on the impact that they can have for Denver as they continue to make strides to get in that title hunt and be one of the very best teams in the association?
We're at that stage as a team where we're just trying to close that last mile and really, put the finishing touches and make sure that we have a roster that's optimized for winning a championship. So you start to get pretty particular about the skill set that you want to bring in. And when you're looking around the league, for a while now, we kept looking at KCP as this guy who's like, checks every single box that we need. Just sort of obviously, championship success, defensive, can shoot, works well off the ball, just the perfect guy that we want in that role. And so it was pretty exciting to be able to actually bring him in and complete that puzzle and have that sort of optimized unit. Obviously the talent is high, and the talent going out was high, so it's, but in terms of being exactly what you need and being that final starting piece, it was pretty exciting. And then, Ish is a guy who offers, it's the easiest way to drop a bunch of games, throughout the year is to have a big hole in a backup guard spot, or have somebody go down and not have anybody who can step in. And he's the kind of guy you can absolutely trust to do that. And, it certainly doesn't hurt, especially at the guard, position, to have, a guy where, a bunch of my friends around the league who because he's been around the league so much, would first thing they did was call to say he's, their favorite player they've ever, just like the best guy ever, favorite person ever, which is huge, especially in those kind of rotation spots on a contending team, to have just really, positive characters you can count on to come and, help you win games. So it's a pretty good situation.
Oh yeah. I mean, you just spoke on the intangibles. It's one thing to look at their numbers and say he can shoot, he can make a difference as a ball mover, as a ball handler. But if you bring in guys that, like you said, are high character guys you can trust, guys that are going to be consistent, as both of these players have shown to be during their long careers, I mean, that's just going to help you in so many different ways. And as an added bonus in this deal, Denver saves a few $1 million here. I mean, I believe almost $5 million in this exchange. So I was looking at Twitter in the aftermath of this deal, and several people were looking at it. And of course, you're going to have these knee-jerk reactions, right? Mm-hmm. That's what Twitter is there for, to have these immediate reactions. And people want to look at the two players that were outgoing and incoming and say, like, well, Barton and Morris were better than KCP and Smith, so they lost the deal. Mm-hmm. But if you dive in a little bit deeper, you see that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a very solid player. He's a championship player. He won in 2020 with the Lakers in one of his previous stops. And Ish Smith is, one of the best, most consistent backup guards in the league. And then on top of that, makes strides to counter the rising salary, in terms of MPJ coming up for that extension, and they're going into the luxury tax, and that's a consideration that every organization thinks about at some point. Even the Lakers and the Knicks, with all this money, at some point the luxury tax is a consideration. So I think that's one portion of this deal that definitely need to take into account is the financial part, because like you said, it's the CBA, it's the luxury tax penalties, it's all that stuff. That's definitely a big component of why these trades are made, not just from an on-court perspective, although that is a very important part of making these deals.
Yeah, and I think one of the factors that gets left out the most, I think, when evaluating deals and stuff like that, is how the opening of roles and roster spots can shift the value of a deal. I think it made it easier to get who we ended up getting as a free agent because of the way it shaped the arrangement of the roster, that kind of thing. It's depends on what guys you have, what roles everybody reasonably expects that they're going to demand, and how that impacts how other players see the structure of a roster can be a really big deal. So I think because of the way we're able to complete the offseason and the free agency, I think it made it a clear win.
Definitely.
Even though, it was far from easy, to move Will and Monte. They're both, really good players who the team liked a lot. So it wasn't, some trades are easier than others. This was not, it was not that type of a deal, but we certainly, we were excited about what we did still.
Oh yeah. There's several reasons to be excited. Both those guys, like you said, have had a great impact for Denver for many years. But when one door closes, another one opens. And, a door that opened here as a result of that was the Bruce Brown signing. You ship off these guys that Denver loves so much, but you bring in a guy that I'm sure they're going to love just as much because of those intangibles, because of the little things that go beyond the stat sheet that Bruce Brown brings to the table. He spent a few years in Brooklyn, and last season in particular, he made an incredible impact just as a short roll guy. The impact that he had as being like an undersized center almost. It's kind of incredible when it comes to the position versatility in today's NBA. Bruce Brown is 6'4", somewhere around that range, and he plays almost like a big man role, which is incredible. But coming in at the 6.5 approximately taxpayer mid-level exception for a team seems like a huge value. I personally thought that in another organization, he could have made a little bit more money. But coming over to Denver, I think he's going to have a huge impact from day one, and he's going to amplify the strengths of other players because of the things that he does in the basketball court from day to day. So excellent value at 2 years, $13 million or so. And, he should be a incredible contributor for a team that's looking to make that last little jump. He's a guy that you plug in and say he could really take us over the hump in terms of getting to a championship.
Yeah, totally agree, obviously. But I do some model projections on sort of, the value that a player is expected to bring to the team in monetary terms. And he actually, I think he came in as the highest surplus value signing of the free agency period. So that, that's, from my perspectives in particular, that seemed like a great win. And then just in addition to just the pure, talent of the player that we brought in, I think the versatility is particularly valuable for us. The ability to fill just so many holes, and also, not just fill gaps, but also open up all sorts of creative, possibilities, and, have him out there as the dive man with, Mike and Zeke spacing the floor at the bigs, or have him running inverted pick and roll with Jokic, or have him, working off of Jokic as a cutter, all of the just, the cool ways, the lineups we can throw out, the schemes we can go with. We're sitting here in the offseason, you can just make up all sorts of things. And, some subset of those will never happen. And some things I would never think of are going to end up taking place. But it's, I think it's pretty clear that on net, he's a guy who will add a lot of versatility and creativity to the things that we can do, which should be huge as we move through the playoffs.